All right, so I've got a question for you. What do you think we're actually handing the next generation? I'm not talking about our stuff or our money. I mean, what are we putting in their heads? And do we even realize what that is? The other morning, I was out front sweeping my porch, music going through my Bluetooth speaker. It was early, so I wasn't really paying attention to who was around, and I was singing along to the music, badly, because I cannot sing. And a girl from the neighborhood was walking by, and she stopped and asked what I was listening to. Now, full disclosure, Reggie was out there with me. She didn't stop for me. I'm pretty sure she stopped for him. Everybody in this neighborhood knows him. They have no clue what my name is, but they know Reggie. I am the antisocial one with the neighborhood's most social dog. So I have absolutely no doubt that she stopped for him and was just making polite conversation with the dog mom. Thankfully, my singing didn't deter her. Anyway, I told her it was Magic Man by Heart, and she said, "Whose Heart?" I damn near choked on my coffee. We started talking. I played her brief parts of a couple of songs. She had seen the video where Heart performed Stairway to Heaven at the Kennedy Center Honors for Led Zeppelin. She said, "I thought they were a tribute band." I just closed my eyes and took a breath because that one kind of hurt. She told me that she listens to Cavetown and Billie Eilish, which, fine, I like Billie Eilish. Said she never really listens to the old stuff, and her parents never listened to much at all. I told her she was missing out. She asked me what I listened to, and I said, honestly, pretty much everything. New stuff, old stuff, every genre. Doesn't matter to me. I just love music. She'd heard of some of the old ones I mentioned, but didn't know the music. She said she'd heard of Springsteen because her dad says he's a liberal commie and his music sucks. I just looked at her for a second, and then I pulled up the first Springsteen song I found on my playlist. It happened to be Pink Cadillac, not even his best song, and she loved it. And before any of y'all come at me, I don't care if you like Springsteen or not. I don't care what you listen to. It's not the point. One out of the blue conversation on my front walk, and I could not stop thinking about it. So here we are. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Rachel. Fair warning, this one might piss some of you off, but probably not who you think. Because this isn't a "What's Wrong with Kids Today" video. I actually love talking to people younger than me, older too. Sometimes more so than people my own age, honestly, just because of the perspectives. So if you came for the "What's Wrong with Kids" video, this isn't it. This is about us, the parents, the aunts and uncles, the older siblings, even the grandparents, and what we're actually passing down. And are we even paying attention to what that is? Now, first, honestly, I was by no means a perfect parent, not even close. My kids could probably give you a list of things I did wrong, and I doubt it would be short. But here's what I did do. I had music on, always, because that's just how I live. And it was everything. Music from my parents' generation, my older siblings, my own, my kids. Old stuff, new stuff, didn't matter to me. All of it was crashing into each other in the same house because of what I was exposed to my whole life. Nobody curated it. Nobody explained it. It was just there, loud and everywhere, and unavoidable for my kids. And they grew up in the middle of all of that. Not because I was trying to teach them anything, just because the music was on. Now, here's why I think that matters. Because this really isn't just about the music. I know, shocking, right? But if we never expose the people we're raising to anything beyond what's already in our house, already in our heads, already on our approved list, their world stays small. Genuinely small. And I don't mean that as an insult, it's just a fact. The table only has what we put on it. And if we only set out our favorites, our opinions, our conclusions, that's not exposure. It's just a smaller version of us. And then some things die because of that. Music dies, ideas die, thinking dies. That girl had never heard Heart. She saw them perform at the Kennedy Center on YouTube and just thought they were a tribute band. And that is not her fault. Nobody turned the music on. We can't force our kids to love what we love or believe what we believe. And honestly, we shouldn't. As much as we'd probably all love them to be just like us. The point is to put it all on the table. The stuff we love and the stuff we don't. The music that moves us and the music that isn't our thing. The ideas we agree with and the ones that make us uncomfortable. Our political views and the ones we cannot stand. All of it. Because someone who only ever hears what their parents already decided is worth hearing hasn't been given much of anything. They have been given a very tidy, very narrow world with walls already up. We need to give them the whole table. What they do with it is up to them. That is a starting point, not a finish line. And look, I know we all start there. Every single one of us. Our parents' music, our parents' politics, our parents' religion. That's just how it works. I had my parents' politics until I was old enough to look around and decide for myself. I had my parents' religion until I started asking questions they weren't entirely thrilled about. They learned to live with it, though, because somewhere along the way, I'd been handed enough raw material to actually think with. That is the difference. We all start as our parents. The question is whether we give the next generation enough to eventually think their way past us, or whether we hand them a map we already drew and tell them not to deviate. And that brings me to the part that really got under my skin. Liberal commie. We got to talk about that for a sec because it's important, and also because, and I say this with absolutely no malice, that is not a thing. Liberalism and communism are not the same thing. Not even close to the same thing. Liberalism is rooted in individual rights and personal freedoms. Communism is collective ownership and state control. They are historically opposed philosophies. You can dislike both of them. That's fine. But calling somebody a liberal commie isn't a political opinion. It's a bumper sticker, and a bad one at that. And that bumper sticker is now living in that girl's head as a fact about Bruce Springsteen, a man whose music she had never actually heard. She didn't think that. She repeated it. Now, I am not saying don't have political opinions or share them with your kids. Have them. Have strong ones. But if we're going to pass them down to our kids, they should at least be able to survive a basic fact check. Liberal and communist are not the same thing. And if we are handing down opinions we haven't even bothered to examine ourselves, we're not teaching them how to think. We're teaching them that thinking isn't necessary. That is the part that scares me. And that's the part that keeps me up at night. Not the politics, the pre-digested thinking, that handing down of conclusions before anybody gets a chance to examine them. Because here's the thing about music and politics. They have never been separate, ever. Folk songs were political. Protest songs were political. Country songs were political. Rock songs, political. Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, Johnny Cash, Bob Dylan, Springsteen, Charlie Daniels, Public Enemy, Green Day, Toby Keith, Kendrick Lamar. Pick a frickin' artist. All of them saying something that needed saying from every direction on the map. Music is where people put the things that wouldn't fit anywhere else, across the whole political spectrum. That is part of what it's for. That's part of what makes it matter. But there is a difference between saying that this artist has a point of view and saying, here's what to think about it. Conversation over, don't bother listening. One gives our kids information. One shuts it down before they ever get a chance to decide for themselves. And we cannot raise people who think for themselves if we keep doing that. If we keep handing them the finished product instead of the ingredients. If we keep treating our own conclusions as the only acceptable outcome. Socrates said that the unexamined life isn't worth living. Not the unlived life, the unexamined one. Immanuel Kant wrote in the 1700s about having the courage to use your own understanding. The idea that we spent centuries letting kings and churches do our thinking for us, and it was time to stop. And Frankl, who lost everything and still came back and said the last human freedom is the ability to choose your own response, your own interpretation, your own stance. All of them, centuries apart, saying the same thing. Think for yourself or you're not really thinking. It was relevant when they said it, and it is incredibly relevant now. And I know some of us hear that and we think, well, I don't want my kids thinking the wrong things. I get it. But here's what happens when we don't give them the tools to think at all. They don't stop forming opinions. They just form them from whatever is handed to them. A bumper sticker, a headline, whatever the loudest voice in the room is saying. People who haven't learned to examine things are incredibly easy to lead. That is not an opinion. That's just history. So, yeah, this isn't totally about music. Music is just what pulled the curtain back for me on a Wednesday morning on my front porch and opened the floodgates in my brain like it always does. And y'all know that's just how my brain works and where most of these videos come from. What this is actually about is what we're handing down, whether it's a starting point or a finish line, whether we're giving our kids a river to swim in or a small enclosed pool. I was sitting down working on what to talk about in this video with my earbuds in, letting my music shuffle through, and Free Will by Rush came on. I mean, come on. If that's not the universe telling me I'm on the right track, I don't know what is. That girl loved Pink Cadillac the second she heard it. No politics, no dad's voice, just the song. All it took was somebody turning it on. She walked away smiling. I told her to listen to Hungry Heart and Born to Run. Then, I stood there thinking, she's going to be fine. That was kind of cool, though. But I was also frustrated because how many aren't? How many people are walking around with empty shelves and closed doors and bumper stickers where opinions should be? That is what keeps nagging at me. And I don't have a clean answer for it. Do you? Thanks for watching. Take care of you, and I will see you the next time. Bye-bye.